Welcome to the Making AI Approachable webinar. This is the fifth one in our series, and the topic of the day is AI and cybersecurity. And today we have something special. We have a guest star, Jari Salomaa, with us here today. My name is Mikko Peltola. I'm one of your hosts, and I have Petri Salonen here as my co-host. So why don't we get started by introducing ACX and TELLUS, and then we can introduce Jari, and then we can jump into the topic of the day. So together, ACX and TELLUS International deliver strategy, design, and engineering consultancy. We have complementary strengths, so ACX is focusing on the design and engineering part, and Petri and TELLUS on the strategy consulting. Petri, why don't you talk us through the TELLUS offering first, and then I'll do the same for the ACX.
Sure. So TELLUS has been working really in the cloud environment since cloud really got started, like with Azure, from the incubation of Azure environment. So we've been delivering hundreds of strategy workshops for partners of different sizes, and I'm really excited about the partnership that we have with ACX, because we've been really focusing on the strategy side of it. Like you can see some of the workshop types that we're delivering, and now we're going to be able to provide really the implementation, so from design into the engineering approach as well. So I think it's a really good approach that we have been able to build from end to end, getting the design, the business models in place, and then delivering the solution to the organization. Back to you, Mikko.
Excellent. Thanks, Petri. And then ACX here is our leadership. So we are North America-based company, primarily in US and Canada, and then also presence in Finland through our or in Europe through our Finland presence. What we do is design and engineering, as mentioned. So on the design side, we can help you with the research and insights work, or then do UX design, visual design. Then our tech team, our engineering team, has specialized in building secure backend and DevOps. And then in the kind of intersection of these, we can also do the front end. And the kind of projects that we mostly engaged are in the more futuristic technologies, so like extended reality and then AI. So that's briefly about us. Then I would like to introduce my old colleague and friend, Jari. I've known Jari for almost 20 years. We have worked as colleagues, as partners in different companies and so on. And Jari has a very versatile background, like covering cybersecurity companies like FireEye, and then working in the biggest and most forward-looking cloud service providers like Salesforce and ServiceNow. And he's been in platform product management for the security and knows a lot about these topics. So Jari, welcome. Thank you. It's great to have you here. And why don't you introduce yourself? And you have something exciting going on with Valo Security. Maybe a couple of words about that as well.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And thank you, Mikko, and thank you, Petri, for having me. Excited. Greetings from Espoo, Finland. I am normally based in San Francisco, but joining this from the Finnish evening, this 7 o'clock here in close to Helsinki, and really my pleasure to be here today, and have really enjoyed collaborating with Mikko in through his multiple roles, and also through my career with many different employers. And I have to give a word of warning that, like, the reason why I'm actually working in the current position as the CEO of Valo Security is because of Mikko and his connections. Connecting to my co-founder, so be careful when you meet Mikko. You might be running companies, and finding yourselves in new situations. He's very inspiring colleague, and I enjoy, both our professional work, but our friendship as well. So delighted to be here.
Excellent, thank you. So let's go then to the topic of the day, AI and cybersecurity. What are your thoughts, Jari, on this?
Oh, right. So absolutely. So so I think the key thing with cybersecurity, of course, and artificial intelligence, I think, is that how do you kind of like perceive the either the positive side of it or the kind of the negative perception, or how maybe Hollywood, with the movies like Terminator and kind of machines taking over have kind of brought kind of like some dark clouds around AI and given it a little bit of a bad reputation, and I think there's this kind of like overall little bit negative perception around AI and the kind of like possible negative consequences. And there's another I think children's movie that I've enjoyed a lot called Wall-E, that I've enjoyed watching, which I think predicted pretty carefully and predictably the use of iPad and the people the way that we're interacting with screens. And whether it has some truth to it, I feel that like I think it's an interesting starting point that artificial intelligence and machines by nature, like humans, are a little bit suspicious. And I think that's actually not only like of course it's not good to start on a negative note, but I think when we think about cybersecurity and the way AI is used, I think that could be actually a good thing, be keeping ourselves a little bit on our toes. So let's talk a little bit about like what does this actually then kind of mean in practice. So I think we can all agree that like AI may have not had the best start in the last decades in terms of the point of view of this reputation, and now we see AI kind of disrupting many different industries and applications. And for anybody living in San Francisco, you cannot live in San Francisco without seeing one of these things. So they're cruising in hundreds and around the city all day, every day, all the time. And you probably have cursed or used some swear words if you've been stuck behind one in traffic, and driving around the block many times with their cameras on and perhaps wondering like what are they filming and like what are they actually doing? Is this a violation of privacy? And like and the cars are getting better, but like what are these cars actually doing? And whether you find it like a funny or annoying, with the technology, you always have like a little bit like quirky or strange consequences, unwanted behaviors. And one of those behaviors is actually there's a group in San Francisco that are really against these like autonomous vehicles, and they are putting cones on front of the hood of the cars, then thus disabling the entire vehicle and blocking traffic in San Francisco. And I think it's fantastic to be able to live through this experience, to see these like self-driving cars. It would have been hard to imagine, I would say, in 10 years ago, that like these are truly something that I get to experience. But like definitely very interesting sets of consequences that I think a lot of these companies and organizations that now are being disrupted is also kind of like how simply and quickly you can disrupt these kind of vehicles by just like placing a construction cone on the hood of the car, and it doesn't know anymore what to do. But
these are not yet like self-driving taxis. These are just learning, or what are they doing there?
No, it's in early trials. So in San Francisco, you can actually, so they are in replacement of Uber. So some people that are doing especially night shifts and working late hours do have invites for Waymo and Cruise. So in San Francisco, people do drive them, but for some reason, I think it's a very limited amount of people currently enrolled to that app, and most of these cars you see on the road actually drive empty.
Okay.
So
yeah.
they're still I think collecting data and doing all kinds of other other maneuvers and improving the algorithms, I would say.
Right.
But so what I wanted to actually kind of more get to the topic of is like obviously my own company and like a lot of my experience when I work with Mikko is in the B2B space. So and very recently, a couple of weeks ago, I think 3 weeks ago or so, I attended Dreamforce, and Dreamforce is apparently now an AI conference. So we learned that like AI excuse me, is being embedded into customer service, how making, providing automated responses. So the customer service rep has to work less and, For sales, like, AI is making kind of intelligent decisions on behalf of human operators, and can tell to which customers to work with, and even now, like, which was pretty amazing, Salesforce AI can write Apex code, the proprietary Java-like code, which is pretty cool. So when we think about this kind of like these assistant type behaviors and how this kind of AI productivity is like helping our life, and we know we can get to places faster, or we can write code faster, or we can just be a super rep, or we can be like an amazing customer service representative. So from a cybersecurity perspective, I think we need to look at this from two sides. So like all of these like productivity increases are, incredible. Like, we can generate, data, essays, books, any kinds of materials, even music, pictures, and even these kinds of deepfake videos and others. But when we flip the coin, and when we think about, like, how the other side, like obviously the cyber criminals, can then use this information and kind of like learn about your behavior, style of speech, the way you kind of speak, your dialect, maybe your accent, and they can mimic this in a customer service scenario, maybe request your password reset, or go, have a audio-based conversation, and imagine you to reset your password and other things. So then that kind of provokes another thought, that can we imagine where we have this customer service AI asking, or talking to a deep fake, asking to verify its identity in the password reset chain. So AI talking to AI, what is going to happen? So I think we're living very interesting times, and the data, of course, is at the core of all of this. So what I thought was very interesting is the new kind of architecture. For instance, Salesforce now launched at Dreamforce, and here's a picture of it, talking about the Salesforce Einstein GPT trust layer. So here particularly, they also talked about this data cloud, which I think is very interesting. It wasn't quite clear to me how they technically connect the Einstein GPT with data cloud, but nevertheless, the mechanism or the purpose of this is to really prevent sensitive data or protected information, PII, PHI type of information ending up in the large language model, the LLM models, so that they would retain proprietary sensitive data. And I think this is great news for the enterprise, because I think previously you had to kind of make a decision whether you embrace AI or not, and it's kind of like a yes or no binary answer. And now within this like technology, you can of course follow security best practice, and you can minimize and use technologies like data masking to minimize data within these environments. And then of course this all happens within the trusted boundary of this particular SaaS platform that has been authorized or approved for a particular use case. And I think also within what I mentioned earlier, the ability to write code. So the Apex GPT, or the code generation or creation, also has the ability to scan vulnerabilities and provide kind of like inline suggestions to the code directly within the engineer's IDE. So that really kind of like, I think, disrupts some of the thinking when you think about there's an industry around providing solutions and technologies like data classification, data masking, code scanning, and others. And I think they will continue to be very relevant. But now they're definitely getting this kind of like productivity boost by these like native capabilities to be able to do even more. And I think we should maybe see these capabilities as opportunities for the developers and maybe customer service representatives to be on like turbo boost, being able to do more work than maybe a one or two people. So that's very exciting.
You're raising an interesting point there. Like if we think about like previous technology disruptions, like for example iPhone, for a long time it was not sanctioned by the corporate IT. It was just the kind of executives who wanted to use their iPhone that pushed IT departments to accept them. And for a moment, this generative AI was in the same kind of situation. So when ChatGPT came out, if you wanted to try to use it, you were kind of operating in a gray zone or like a not permitted application. But I've been surprised how fast Microsoft and Salesforce and other companies have managed to bring the generative AI capability within their like own products. And of course, the benefit is like if you've chosen to trust Salesforce and you have your confidential data there, it's probably easier to use the generative AI tools that they have because you already have established this level of trust.
That's right. That's right. And I think this is very interesting now is like, obviously some of these SaaS providers and platform providers are more sophisticated than others. And, so I think, obviously and evidently, I think the entire AI conversation is the boardroom conversation right now. I think everybody, in every organization is thinking about like, how do we embrace AI? Like, what is our AI strategy? How do we utilize, the turbo boost and kind of get the most out of our organization, most out of our tools. And I think it's very interesting to see that, some companies are further along than others on this journey. And whether or not these architectures, are final, I doubt that. I think there will be even more kind of like fine tuning. And what I find is also interesting, these like toxicity detection and ability to kind of like validate whether certain AI statements are actually true, because the AI is only as smart, as the data you feed it. So like, are you able then to validate that this information actually may be historical and it's kind of like actually no longer the truth? But yeah, I think both Salesforce and Microsoft, I think definitely companies to keep an eye out as these architectures evolve.
Yeah. This is a good example because Petri has shown us before like use cases from the kind of Microsoft suite, but this is bringing another view like how Salesforce is approaching this. Technically not that different, but it gives choices for us which ecosystem to trust and go with.
And one comment to this is super great stuff. So in fact, I was sitting in a Gartner webinar this morning, and they have now built a maturity framework that kind of shows specifically in the generative AI, how organizations might be moving. And the message was exactly the same, that every organization is struggling where to start, what to do, where do we fit, what are our capabilities. So that's a thing that is going to hit every single organization, besides the security, of course.
Yeah. And
excellent point.
You're right. And bringing this back to kind of Jari's earlier comment that this is the boardroom conversation, and it's kind of fight between like fear and greed. You want to move forward, you want to enable, you see what's possible, but then you have like you're doubtful that okay, what are the consequences? Do we know enough? Are we sacrificing our confidential data, our privacy, or something like that? Good. And this is actually like at the root of why we started these making AI approachable webinars, so that we can try to have a conversation around the AI topic, make it more approachable, encourage people to move forward in the right way. Good.
Precisely. Great.
Jari.
So yeah, so let's actually bring you mentioned privacy. So let's bring a little bit of like private security and privacy into this conversation. So now that we kind of assume that AI is part of the integrated enterprise infrastructure, and they are secure and right means to implement it, but these are of course driven by these like large public companies that have business interests to do that. So I guess like the question is that like are there any other possibilities than to embrace AI? Is there any other way? Like you're kind of obsolete, or you either go full in or you don't, and are you then irrelevant if you don't? And maybe there are some industries that like maybe can live without AI, but it seems almost like in my kind of rear view mirrors and like from the road ahead, that like every industry is getting kind of disrupted by this. And what I think about now from a regulatory standpoint, I think like I remember the earlier Dreamforce events. Mikko, you and me were many years ago there. And remember the Salesforce founder Mark Benioff talking about social media as these kinds of digital cigarettes and the addiction built by the social media companies, and overall kind of like the negative impacts of that, and the lack of governance, and like how the social media should be governed by national entities and others. So I find it interesting also that, so what's the governance for AI, if there is one, like should there be more governance, as like, now these private entities are profiling people, and businesses are collecting more information about their customers and knowing everything from them. And of course, what's different now between then is like, today, luckily we have GDPR, in Europe, and California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, and a number of other US states have different kinds of privacy regulation. And you covered a lot of that, I think, also in the previous webinars. But also, I think we have to be realistic that very little is enforced. So like, I think the companies at the end are kind of pretty free to do what they want. Obviously, like, if they don't have processes to provide evidence or data to meet the requests by the auditors, they're going to be in trouble. But we know that, like, government resources in this space are very limited. So I think it's an interesting situation where probably businesses keep kind of pushing the envelope further and further, until somebody kind of slap them into their fingers and say that, hey, don't do that, or or there's going to be like monetary fines if you break the rules. And we'll have to kind of like keep an eye on this, what this really means, as these kinds of user profiles and your face, your digital identity, and your behavior becomes part of, like, the consumption algorithm of these big platforms, and marketing, and other use cases. So.
Yeah, what we discussed in a previous webinar is the difference between the European and the US approach. So in Europe, we tend to go into kind of over-encompassing legislation that covers all the countries, all the industries, like GDPR in the privacy space. And in US, it's more like companies are voluntarily doing something, but I think they're doing it to avoid legislation and regulation coming to them. And then it's like they are often trying to do the bare minimum so that they don't get caught or don't get punished. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in different places.
That's right. So going on that, so we know that, like, AI feeds on data and obviously requires access to create the models, and then I think from a security point of view, we need to think about, like, this kind of a constant access to keep the AI model and the profile up to date, as everything changes and evolves very fast around us. So when we think about those data pipelines and the architecture from like Salesforce and Microsoft, and also some other companies putting forward, are kind of very relevant to ensure that their proprietary business data doesn't end up in these large LLM models. On how you control employees to use these tools, or they just don't put their enterprise credentials and, hey, GPT, go and do this for me, or have like some bots to continuously scan proprietary data from enterprise systems, and being able then to know where your SaaS real estate or your tools and your connectivity layer and the way that, like, your data plumbing exists. And this is, by the way, an area where my company Valo Security is focused on, into highlighting or bringing this light Valo into the darkness of kind of highlighting those kinds of pathways for data.
Okay, there's actually somebody asked a question here that, like, what is Valo? So I understand that it's a bit mysterious at the moment, but like, what can you say? Where
right.
are you?
So yeah, Valo means light or illumination in Finnish. So Valo Security is like bringing light into the darkness, and to kind of help organizations to better make sense of what they have when it comes to sensitive data use and access. And we're a new company, so we started this process and project this year, and we're still kind of like, holding information to ourselves. We're still in stealth mode. We launched the company in Dreamforce, but you're happy to visit our website, valosecurity.com, and put your contact information there, and we can get a meeting with you and kind of show you a little bit of our proof of concept, and slowly as we kind of develop our product to give you kind of little teasers if you're interested to hear more.
Okay, and you are based in Europe and US.
That's right. So we're headquartered in San Francisco with an R&D team in Europe.
Okay.
So I definitely have our both feet on both continents.
Okay, so what we discussed earlier about like different approach in US versus Europe, you got both the continents covered there.
Right. So we definitely, from organizational point of view, our kind of go-to-market muscle is more in North America, and then our R&D muscle is in Europe. Obviously, I think a lot of the privacy regulation and a lot of like overall security awareness is very strong everywhere in the world these days, but like even more so I think in countries like Germany and Scandinavian countries, and there's a lot of like great engineering skills around these kinds of technologies that we are now tapping in with the Valo team. But as said, definitely go to the website, reach out to the team, and between now and our product launches, get in touch for more information from me.
Okay, excellent. Looking forward to hearing more.
So within the topic of like who has access to the data and where is it, and when you have kind of like your purchase data, your location, behavior, unexpected behavior for AI. So when we think about from an enterprise architecture perspective, it's like very important to know like the visibility and the discovery of your systems, like and how they connect with one another, who has access to them, how those access keys are managed and how they're protected, and who is using which system, and like what type of data flows typically within a particular environment, and like that helps to enterprises to better manage and compartmentalize a little bit like in this closet, put information into different places so that like it's rightly and readily protected, as well as then you can easily spot if information and data goes missing or data is not where it should be. And I'm going to conclude now with a kind of four learnings or four topics that I want to just give for cybersecurity advice for AI builders. And I don't know if you noticed, by the way, but all of these images are kind of AI machine generated throughout my presentation, but and trying to kind of set the tone for the topic. But yeah, I wanted to kind of leave the audience with like four kind of pieces of advice. So one, of course, is that like never ever enter any sensitive data into the public GPT or LLM models that like you wouldn't want to end up in the public internet or everybody to know. So these tools are very great, easy to use, but like if you do feed into it, like you're possibly most likely never going to get that data back, and it's difficult to revert, very difficult, probably impossible. So and the second point is that like the kind of be overall kind of a little bit on your toes. I kind of mentioned this in the beginning, that like that maybe that like phishing email that you kind of like get every now and then to your inbox that is so clearly not from Microsoft or not from your bank, and it's kind of easy to spot. I think those are just going to get a little bit more intelligent, and similar to social media, they know a lot about you now that AI kind of like can track and know your behavior, and these attacks and kind of targeted attacks going to get very sophisticated. So They might be, coming at a really in a moment of weakness and a moment of time where you think that this is actually a part of this, like, regular conversation. And because of the characteristics of, face, voice, sound, texts, emails and others, I think that that's going to be more of a concern and something for you, I think, to be more in the know. And of course, tools are going to get hopefully better, and there's other kinds of validations, whether messages come from the right source, that will be hopefully helping us there. And when also kind of using these kinds of ChatGPT type of tools, I think a great recommendation would be to kind of remove any recognizable things in those tools. So if you have any company names, customer names, schools, locations, things that are definitely your company data. The company data is your company data, not your data. So just remember always to check with IT or your legal team, your policy, that you just don't suddenly realize that you're breaking your company security policy by taking proprietary company information and giving it to the OpenAI tools and then sharing data with which is actually not yours. And then fourth is that don't trust AI blindly. We talked about these fantastic additions to, for instance, create Apex code with the Einstein platform, and it itself can still contain vulnerabilities. It's likely to contain bugs, and it is as good as those models have been training them. So don't use don't give blind trust to AI. It's not perfect, and it's important to keep kind of little bit similar oversight as in any other area to run with a little bit of a common sense to things that but obviously, of course, for any fans of these tools and that utilize these daily, doing language checks and others, these are great tools. I want to kind of encourage everybody to embrace more AI and build AI into their business processes, but also to be kind of not just blindly kind of assuming that they're perfect. I think we are kind of maybe in the beginning of the wave, and I think in maybe 3, 4 or 5 years, we're just in the beginning of this disruption, and I think things are just going to get more interesting, both positive and negative when we think about cybersecurity. But that's kind of my 4 bullets, Mikko and Petri. Hopefully that was interesting. I don't know if you or any of the audience have any questions, or you have any other slides on your end.
This is great. I have one, and it's something that I have noticed by talking to a lot of customers, is the fact that not many organizations still think about the security in the way that they should. And I was exposed for more than 2 years running cyber and IT due diligence projects. So when PE firms buy assets, and that kind of showed me that, whoa, this is something that organizations really should be aware of, and also it should be part of building the value of these organizations. So I think this applies also very well to AI, whatever they are doing internally. It might have an impact if they ever sell their organization. Do you agree with that?
That is really well said, Petri. Yeah, spot on.
You raised a couple of interesting points there. So one was this not trusting AI, the responses. So what we learned all in using ChatGPT and other tools is that the responses it provides are very convincing, whether they are true or not. And it's kind of easy to fall into the trap that you assume that what generative AI creates is true without fact checking it. And of course, when you're operating in your own area of expertise, it's easy to first formulate the prompts correctly so that you get relevant responses, and then you can read through the text that, okay, yes, does this make sense, and maybe filter out the 10 or 20% that is not spot on. But when we explore to areas where we are not subject matter experts, then it's easy to fall into the trap that, okay, that this is what ChatGPT said, and take it as gospel.
Yeah, I think just want to clarify, don't trust it blindly, that it's the ultimate truth, but definitely the question always is the context, that like, if it's a novel or a word of fiction, and it's 80% inaccurate and 20% accurate, versus the other way around, or if it's a educational material where somebody reading needs to understand something about healthcare or how systems work and others, and then like you said, it's like the output is extremely convincing, and I think that's why I think people kind of have the tendency of taking that like as the kind of the core truth. And I think when we think about code and outputting tests and kind of validating and using as a developer tool, I think it's easy to kind of think and assume that like, hey, that's going to work. And I think sometimes I think like like everything new, it like requires some time and like and auditing and other kinds of capabilities to kind of validate that like how accurate and the information at the core is. So
yeah. And another thing that you raised was this kind of zero trust ideology here. So while your AI tool may claim that they are not using your prompts for anything, how do you know? How do you know whether they changed the rules last night, what is in the small print, or what do they actually do with it when things get tough? So you said like pick your tools, pick your partners, and think twice like what information you're gonna voluntarily submit where.
Yeah, well summarized, Mikko.
Good. Okay. Hey, we have one more question on the line. I don't know if there's something in this chat, but one was submitted for directly, and it says like, who is going to benefit more of the AI, the good guys or the cyber criminals? Pretty broad question, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because like there are definitely benefits on both sides. Well, I would say like if we think about the positives first, like the productivity increase, like we can see that like and how we can kind of maybe write faster, or we can have more faster responses, more have the systems become more efficient and the companies become faster, more profitable, and all of these sort of things. And the downside, of course, is that like a lot of these tools and technologies can be used for bad. I don't think like the way I'm thinking about this is like, is that then like do it or don't. I'm definitely more in the camp of like embracing new things and allowing kind of productivity to flourish. I think it's like maybe some kind of enforcement or kind of common sense or regulation or guidance that like everybody themselves or their organizations can kind of like think about as they use these tools within their organizations. And I think that's an area that's still a little bit emerging, and I think it's a great area to maybe talk with experts, like Petri, who has workshops, and others, to really put your kind of like mind at ease for individual organizations, individual businesses that have kind of unique characteristics and requirements, where I would say that advice, how to maybe operate or build architectures in financial services or regulated industries probably looks very different if you're working on retail and or manufacturing and elsewhere. But overall, I would say that of course business will flourish, and this is a great era in our lifetime that we're living. And while definitely it can be a tool for evil, I don't believe that like that the few control the majority of this kind of a positive wave that AI brings for in our industry.
One way to look at it is like AI is like a new generation of weapons brought into the field. So it's going to be in the hands of both the attackers and defenders. It's like we've been fighting with swords, and now somebody invented gunpowder and guns. And if you think about the generative AI, to be able to generate things, it needs to understand how language or images or videos are put together. So in the same way, this same technology can be used for detection, not just generation, but detection. So it helps both sides. What we haven't seen, like the cybersecurity companies have been building AI into defense for a long time, like decades. We haven't yet seen like fully automated AI generated attacks. So when we start to see those, like something that covers the full kill chain, then it's like the true battle where we're going to see like how good defenses are. And of course, it's going to be then this like cat and mouse game that one side advances and then the other one is like catching up.
Excellent. And who has the best algorithms and like, you know, and how, like, you know, what type of like training and information that you have about the targets and others. So yeah, definitely you bring some very interesting points, Mikko.
Good. Yeah, likewise.
And by the way, one thing that as an educator, I'm really happy that I have some news to all of us. We still have to learn and understand things. We can generate whatever using ChatGPT, but we still have to understand what we are generating and what we are asking from the ChatGPT. And I think that's going to be the key as well, to understand that we as humans still are needed to make logical and reasonable reports, for example.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like if we think about the technology disruptions that we have seen in our lifetimes, adopting those always has taken time, and nothing has been introduced as fast as the generative AI.
Exactly.
So I think we are all going to struggle how to take that into the processes and our daily work, and we have tools that we don't yet fully understand.
Exactly.
Excellent. Hey, I think at this point it's time to say thank you very much, Jari, for joining us. Thanks for a well-prepared presentation. You bring some insights and angles that we could never cover with Petri. So it's great to have you as a guest star here.
Fantastic in content.
Thank you.
Good. So in summary, if you have interest in exploring AI, Petri has strategy offering, go-to-market offering, packaging, pricing offering. ACX can help you with the design and engineering, so the actual implementation of these, and we are partnered, so we are working together. We still need to wait some time before Jari reveals how Valo Security is going to help you, but check out their website and stay tuned. I'm sure that there is something very interesting coming out from Valo Security. And for our next webinar, we're actually going to be live in Oulu, Finland on October 12th. And we'll record this presentation in case somebody doesn't make it all the way to Oulu. The topic will be the future landscapes of generative AI in business. And after that, we're going to resume with our regular webinars, and we'll keep you posted on the topics. If you have anything that you want to specifically hear about, let us know, and we'll try to fit that into the schedule. That's it today. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.